Hi, good morning. Today is the 8th of August, and our meditation is based on Romans chapter 11, verse 23. And if they do not persist in unbelief, they will be grafted in. For God is able to graft them again. God is able to graft them again. Paul is using the analogy of the vine to talk about what God did in order to have, in order for him to have one people, and he used something that we actually don't the opposite of what we normally do. He we normally have a wild vine, a wild apple tree, and then we come with one that is already bearing fruit, and we graft the new one into the one that was wild. But what God did here is actually the opposite. There was a vine that was already producing fruit, and God comes with the wild one, the Gentiles here, and graft the wild one into the one that was already bearing fruit. That one that was bearing fruit but rejected the Messiah. Paul is saying here in Romans chapter 11. Apparently, in Paul's days, because some people say, well, Paul understands a lot about theology, but he doesn't understand anything about agriculture. Because if he did, he wouldn't have said that God got a wild vine to graft it into a one that was already producing fruit, grapes. That's not what they do normally. But apparently, in Paul's time, when a vine that was old was not bearing fruit anymore because it was too weak, they grafted a wild one to give a bit of a strength to this vine. But even if that is just it's not a story based on, it's not a thing based on a true story, the fact is God grafted the wild one into the one that was already bearing fruit. But even if that one that was bearing fruit before, because of persists, he says here, in unbelief and doesn't bear fruit anymore, God is able to graft it again. And they will be grafted, he says, in. Because God is so powerful. And sometimes we go through, I was talking to a missionary yesterday who was saying that she was working in a very difficult situation in a country where there was lots of unbelief and people turning their back to Christ, they were persecuting the church. And there was nobody, it seemed that nobody was interested in listening to the message of the gospel. And sometimes we are in impossible situations like that. Pastors, missionaries, if you are preaching the gospel, whatever God has sent you, and you think sometimes that you are wasting your time. But don't forget, God is all powerful, and He can change any situation when people listen to the message of the gospel and turn their back to sin and walk with Him. And then this missionary was telling me that recently they baptized 300 people in that same situation where before there was only possibilities. There are miracles happening all over the world today because God is the same God, the powerful God that transformed Paul's life. A persecutor of the church became an apostle of Christ. And Jesus actually, when he met him on the way to Syria, Jesus asked Paul, "But why are you persecuting me? What do you think you're doing, Paul?" That's what Jesus was saying. How can you persecute me? It doesn't make any sense. You cannot persecute me. So God transformed Paul completely. And now he's saying here that God is able to graft them again, to graft them in again. So God is able to graft anyone in again, and again and again and again. Because God, there is nothing possible for him. Nothing is impossible to God. He can do anything. He can transform anyone. That's why we pray and we share the good news of the gospel. knowing that God is able to transform people's lives. Any person, anyone, he can transform. But we have to turn back to God and walk with him and trust in him. So let us keep on praying for those who have gone astray, who are in need of seeing in Jesus the Son of God, the light of the world, so they will turn back to him, and God is able to graft them in. Nothing is impossible with him. That's the message of Christmas. And it's still August, isn't it? But we can think about Christmas, especially this virus. We never know what's going to happen in the winter. So let's start thinking even now that nothing is impossible with God, that he can do anything. What is impossible for men is possible with God. God bless you.